quality on the outside. He was walking around with his little panel gap measuring tool and couldn't believe that Tesla would put a car that was this badly built on the road and take a premium price for it. But then he test drove the vehicle, and then his tune kind of changed a little bit, and he had the famous word where he said it drives just like a BMW, only faster. So that was when I invented what I call a test lab in my videos, because that was a really big moment where he actually realized that there was more to the car than just these panel gaps. But then he actually teared it down, and then his mind was just simply blown about the engineering that was actually underneath. And you might have seen some of the comparison video he has done with the Ford Mach-E and the Model Y, where the Ford Mach-E has like 3 times the amount of wiring for the cooling system, and it weighs 2 times more, and all this kind of efficiency that he found that Tesla has created within this vehicle. So in the end, he was quite impressed with it, and he actually said when the Highlander Model 3 came out in 2024, the refreshed version, that he thought that was a really mature vehicle and probably one of the best sedans in the world. So going from critiquing its panel gaps and saying that it's crazy that Tesla would release such a poorly built car to suddenly think 7 years later that this is one of the best sedans ever built on the market today. So that's quite a big words for Sandy Munro for this vehicle. The few steps of mistakes that Tesla did in the beginning when they designed this vehicle was basically they missed one of the components, because Elon Musk really wanted to make this alien dreadnought of a factory that was just automated from one side to the next, just spitting out vehicles. But they had designed this vehicle with the engineers and the manufacturing team, but not with the automation team. So the car was very difficult to get automated, and they have to scale all that back, trying to ramp up the production. So this almost killed Tesla in 2018 when they tried to ramp all this up and have to change all of this suddenly, had to pull out some of the robots and put in more humans into the factory, because it was simply impossible what they tried to do and try to make this a 100% automated production line. It is still very automated today, and Tesla has some of the most automated production lines in the world. And they did make some huge innovation of how they actually have these production cells and modules instead, that I'm going to talk about. But the start of the production was really difficult because they didn't have automation designed with the vehicle. But that all changed because the good old Sandy Munro, he teared down a Model 3, as I said, and was very impressed with the engineering, and he found this super bottle inside that was part of the cooling system that Tesla has invented that he was very impressed with. But it didn't take long when he teared down the next Tesla, it was no longer there. Suddenly there was something called the octovalve, that is this complex little engineering marvel that sits inside the car that controls everything from with cooling and heating, from the battery to the seat to the cabin, everything controlled by this little device that they had engineers from SpaceX help them to create. And Sandy Munro was really blown away by this little product, but he also had like 14 changes to the product he recommended in his video. And Tesla saw this, and they actually made these changes. So when Sandy Munro teared apart the next Tesla, he saw that they have actually implemented all these 14 changes to the octovalve in just 4 months. And this was really when Sandy Munro was starting to speak about Tesla moving at the speed of thought, because this is simply just unheard of in the car industry, that you make so many changes, 14 changes in 4 months. This is what automakers don't want to do. They don't want to make changes. If you ask Toyota, this is the expensive part, will hurt their quality if they have to stop production all the time and then test backward and forward on the production line to make sure everything is working, and they have to stop production to do this. So it's a very expensive and complicated thing for automakers to do. But Tesla just did 14 to one product in the car in 4 months. But the crazy thing is, this is not even half of the story, because Tesla makes so many changes to their production line every single week. So Sandy Munro showed us that they can make all these changes, but probably didn't quite understand how is this even possible. But then we had a guy called Joe Justice that came into the picture, sometimes about 2021, I think. I saw the first interview with this guy. He had been a consultant to Tesla back with the Model S, but now he was actually working at Tesla, where he was head of Agile at Tesla. And he had some great insights. And in the first interview I saw with him, he said when he worked at the production line of the Model S, they made 27 changes per week to either the car or the production line. And that sounded crazy. To be fair, that can't be true. But actually, a couple of years later, Elon confirmed on X that, yes, we do make about 20 changes per week per production line. So per vehicle. So either to the vehicle itself or the production line. So their change is like nothing you have ever seen in the automotive industry. It will take like 2.5 years for something to really make a big change in the industry, and Tesla does it daily. And the reason they are able to do this is because they have made a different kind of production system that is usually made for producing vehicles. Because they have to figure out how can we make changes so we can continuously evolve our production skills. Because as Elon said back in 2020, that eventually everybody will have long-range, affordable electric vehicles. Eventually everybody will have full self-driving cars. It's not like he thinks that they're going to be the only one. Everybody will have electric full self-driving cars at some point in the future. But not everybody is going to be good at manufacturing. And like he said, we will be head and shoulders above anybody in manufacturing. That is our goal. And so they had to come up with a system where they could catch up because they have just learned how to build cars. And with the Tesla Model 3, we saw they were not actually very good at it in the beginning. The drive units and everything was very good engineering, but the car itself was poorly built. And the Germans kind of laughed at them. Until they came to the Shanghai factory. Former Herbert Diess, the former CEO of Volkswagen, went to China and showed the Shanghai factory, and he came back and said, we have to do something, because Tesla builds the Tesla Model 3 over there in 10 hours. And we have just made this new production line in the Zwickau factory in Germany. Top of the line, what they could do, and they produced the ID.3 in 30 hours. So Tesla built their car that I would say is pretty inferior to ID.3. It's a bigger car, it has full self-driving, better safety, longer range, faster charging, but they built it 3 times faster than Volkswagen even knew how to. So in 2020, Volkswagen actually held a meeting, brought in 120 managers and held their meeting that they called Mission T. That's about how do we catch up to Tesla. That was actually what the whole meeting was about. And in 2021, Herbert had the balls of inviting Elon Musk to the meeting in a Zoom call where he was on the screen because they wanted to learn to do what Tesla did. So Tesla was way behind in 2017, but in 2020 and 21, the legacy automakers in Germany suddenly found out, holy shit, they have overtaken us. How is this even possible? And I think the Model S is actually a good example. We have just seen they take the last Model S off the production line now, but like Lars said at the event where they delivered the last Model S, that this Model S that they're producing right now compared to the one in 2012 only share 3% of the parts. So it's basically a completely new vehicle. And this is something that takes usually about 60 years for legacy automakers to do to make that big of an evolution, to change all the parts, because this is very expensive. But Tesla could do this because they make changes all the time. And the way they do this is they have something, I haven't seen it myself. This is Joe Justice I have interviewed a couple of times that have helped us put these pieces together. But we can think of it by like they have production cells and not so much production lines. Because when he consulted Tesla on the Model S, it was basically 2 models. They have the battery pack and then the rest of the vehicle they build on one production line. And Joe Justice consulted them and said, you should make more modules. The more modules you can do, the faster you can build every piece of the car and then just have them assembled in the end on the assembly line. And that is what Tesla has been working towards and what they try to do with the Tesla Model 3. So they have these production cells where they build one module. But they don't just have one cell building one model. They may have 2 cells or 3 cells building the same modules to ramp up production faster. And this also gives them the benefits that they can change things in one module and keep the other modules going. So they don't have to stop production to make a change. So they have something they call routers, where they route a car out of the production line, or or this module, or whatever it might be, the product that's going into the car that this module is building, or this cell is building. Then they route it out. They can do some tests on it, and if you find out this will make the car more efficient, or accelerate faster, or the production line faster, they just route that back into that cell, ramp that cell up, and when that is fully ramped up, then they implement it into the other cells. So they don't have to stop production. They can make changes all the time. And I think Joe Justice has one of the few examples I have heard about, and that was when he was working there. There was some guys working somewhere in the factory, and they have made one of these routers, and they were standing there bending some metals, and he came over to them and asked, "What are you doing, and can I help?" And they said, "Yeah, we think we have an idea on how to make the car charge faster." And I don't know what it was, but it was something to do with how we connected from the charging port to the battery pack. And they were bending metals to make some changes. And they actually did make this change, and that is why our Teslas today can charge at 250 kilowatts instead of 200 kilowatts. That was because of that little group standing on the ground implementing this in the production, because from idea until they implemented in the production was in the same day. So it's not something that took them a month and they had to go to the board and ask for permission to make this change. They just had an idea, came up with it, tested it, saw it worked, and just implemented it into the production without ever stopping production, and now suddenly the car could charge faster. So this is really, in my opinion, Tesla's big force that they can do. But when you make this many changes all the time, how the hell do you make sure that the quality is right? Because someone like Toyota or Volkswagen, they will check everything is perfect, then they produce like 10,000 cars, something like that, and then they will make another test. Because if there's something wrong and they have to change a little bit, they have to stop production and then ramp it up afterwards when they have made the change. So this is very expensive, so they don't want to do it too much. But Tesla does basically this on every single vehicle they produce. So every car on the production line goes through every regulatory test that is not destructive, so not crash test, of course, but every other regulatory test a car has to go through, Tesla puts every single car through. We actually have, I think we have a video here. Yeah, this is the production line, where you see on the screen, it's hard to see, this actually says factory mode in red, but this is the car testing itself. So every time they add something to the car, like the steering wheel or the brakes or whatever it does, the software in the car tests itself that everything is right, that the steering wheel can turn and everything is good. So they test itself, and this is actually where Tesla's full self-driving software originated from. It was this self-testing software that they added, this AI system that they added to the cars to learn how to drive themselves. But this is actually something when they find the heat pump, there's something wrong with it, it comes up on the screen here, and the humans can go over and say, oh, this heat pump doesn't work, we have to change it before we build the rest of the car on top of it. So they know exactly what's going on in every single vehicle, and they have what's called a digital twin. So every single vehicle Tesla produce, they make a digital copy of in the cloud. So when someone has to service it, well, it can be a completely different car if it's 6 months old or a brand new vehicle. There can be some different components in it or something like that. So they have to know exactly what's in the car to repair it afterward. But Tesla knows exactly what kind of glue, which bolts, which chips, whatever is in the car, they have a digital twin of it. And every single car goes through all of these tests by themselves. And that's how they keep up with the quality and make sure the car comes out off the production line somewhat perfect. Not always, but they test every single vehicle on this production line. And one of the ways they do this, also with the changes, is that they have a software called Tesla One. Have you heard about that one? Yeah. So they have this Tesla One software that is basically running the entire factory, and they have this whole Tesla bot that every employee in the morning goes over and check and Where is the bottleneck today? I know something about that. I can go over and help here, and they can see in real time the cost of producing different components in the car. They can see like the screens is like 0.001 cent cheaper today to build than it was yesterday. All of this knowledge is there on these screens, and it's all controlled by this AI system that's called Tesla One, where they kind of have combined all the AI system they have used for many years into this one system. And that is also the system that the guys, when they test something, they go to. They get this Tesla One system to go through the car and test if everything is okay. And if it's okay, they implement these changes. They don't have to ask a manager or his manager. And Tesla doesn't have a budget in the same way that traditional automakers have. Volkswagen have like a 9-year budget. And if they want to make some changes, they have to ask the board member level, on board member level, to make this change if it costs money. Tesla doesn't. If it makes the car more efficient or they save, I think it's battery dollar they talk about, if they can put less batteries in because the car gets lighter or more efficient, go for it. We like that we can put less batteries in because that's the most expensive part of the vehicle. So they have this system to test things, but they also have it to help them. And this system is getting extremely intelligent on a specific topic, and that is, of course, manufacturing. Because it actually helped Tesla to come up with a completely new electric motor. That is something you can't get ChatGPT or Grok or Google's version or whatever is out there. They are not intelligent enough to come up with a completely new concept of an electric vehicle because they only know what's written on the internet. Where Tesla's Tesla One get feed data from the entire factory, from all the vehicles that's made. They know exactly how they produce the vehicles, the electric motors. They know from 14 years of data collecting from the first Tesla Model S that sent data back to the mothership. They have learned how the motor handles the Alps here in Austria, and the highway on German Autobahn, and so on. So they know exactly how these electric motors wears over time, how they handle pressure, steep climbs, cold weather. And all of this has been fed back to this AI system. So it is the most knowledgeable system about electric motors probably on the planet. And they made millions of visualizations of how to create a new electric motor. And they actually come up with one that doesn't use any rare earth materials. So that was a big leap, and that is thanks to Tesla's insanely powerful software here that helped them do that. Another great example of their innovation and speed of innovation and help with this software is their heat pump they have in the car. In the beginning, they manually built these heat pumps, and it took a long time. Then they started to have some semi-automated stuff, but then they had their powerful software make some simulations, trying to figure out how can we build this heat pump in a different way so we can automate it 100%. And they worked on this for about 8 months, but now they are producing these like in every 7 seconds it shoots off the production line, 100% automated. Their reduction in labor is 99%, so it's quite a big leap they have done here. So this is a good example of Tesla trying to create something that is 100% automated. That is what they are kind of going for. And that leads us to Tesla's unboxed production method. This is probably something you heard about. That is they're using right now. They have the production line up and running, and it is producing Tesla's Cybercab as we speak. This is not, again, something speculatively far out in the future. It's already happening right now. This production line is up and running, and they are building their Tesla Cybercab. And they're using this unboxed production method. And there it is, basically, they have taken their original idea of making parts and modules and production cells and expanding that, so they build every single part of the vehicle by themselves in different models, and then in the end, they are combining all these models at the assembly line. So the top one up there is kind of how legacy automakers are doing it, and this is what Tesla is trying to do, or have done now, 100% automated the production line. And they were able to do this compared to the Tesla Model 3 failure in 2018, because now they have everybody sit together. They had the designer, Franz, and they have the engineers with Lars, and they have manufacturing team and the automation team, and they didn't just build the car from the ground up, they built the production system from the ground up, figuring out how can we do a better production, how can we produce cars better, and at the same time, how can we automate it. So go through every component in the car and try to figure out, is this really useful? And do we need this? And if we need it, how can we build it so it can be automated? Because this wire is really difficult for a robot. And they have done exactly that and has now built this Cybercab that they are producing as we speak. So not just to me, the Cybercab is a huge leap in innovation, what they have done here. It's an autonomous robotaxi. But for me, the crazy thing and what's going to separate this vehicle from anything else on the market is the production method. Because like Uber's CEO just said a few months ago in an interview, where they are trying to gather as many autonomous vehicle as possible providers. So they partner up with everybody because they know the future is autonomous. If they don't get autonomous vehicle on their platform, they will simply just exist to exist. Cease to exist, there it was. But like he said, robotaxis are these very expensive vehicles. And he's true. It's true if he's talking about anything else but this vehicle, because the Waymo robotaxi that you've probably seen driving around in the US at the moment with the Jaguar I-Pace, that cost around $150,000 to build that vehicle. And it's a long process because they manually fit all the sensors and computers and LiDARs and all that afterwards. So just producing those vehicles is very slow and it's very expensive. Tesla is aiming to have this when the new production line is ramped up, coming off the production line every 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds, there is a Cybercab coming off the production line. Can't wait to see this. It's going to be quite an amazing feat of engineering. But at the same time, the production method itself, Tesla said at the Investor Day, that will cut cost of producing in half. So cut the cost of producing a car in half. And we know that Tesla's Model Y and Model 3 production, the electric vehicle platform, cost around $35,000 to build at the moment for Tesla. And if they cut that in half, that is $17,500. But I actually think this is sandbagging compared to what this car is, because this car is not just a stripped-down Model 3 and that is autonomous. Now, this car has 50% fewer parts than a Tesla Model 3. So I believe they're sandbagging when we're seeing people talking about $20,000 to build this car. I think it's going to be much lower at some point when they ramp up and get to economy of scale. Also because the car is going to have the same batteries, the same chip, the same cameras as their Optimus robot they're planning on building, as I will get to in a moment. So the economy of scale on some of the components in the car is already at scale. They don't have to scale it up to get that economy of scale because they're already there. They use the same chips, the same cameras in the Tesla Model Ys and 3s that is out here. So they are already at scale. They don't have to scale that up to get the economy of scale. So this vehicle is, in my opinion, going to be the most important vehicle going forward, as the Model S, probably the most important vehicle the last 70 years. Because this vehicle, because it is so cost effective to build, we're talking $20,000, let's say that, and the Waymo in the US is probably one that's furthest along and do 500,000 rides a week, so that's pretty impressive on its own. But they still lose about $1 billion every quarter, so they still don't earn money, even though they have had robotaxis running for 7 years or something like that and have 500,000 robotaxi rides every day, every week. And the problem is it's just simply too expensive and complicated how they're doing this. Also with the LiDAR, they have to map every square inch they want to drive and so on. So it's a very complicated process, and their vehicle cost, even their next generation vehicle they want to build, is built on the Zeekr van that cost like $40,000 in China. So if they export that to the US, that costs 100% tariffs on that top, that's $80,000. That's already like 4 times more expensive than this vehicle. And unlike basically everybody else, Tesla has taken the approach of thinking, how can we make this not just as cost effective to build, but also as cost effective to run as possible. That is why it's only a little 2-seater, because that will take care of 90% of all robotaxi and ride-hailing rides. So they have built for the masses, but it's a very small vehicle. If you see it next to a Tesla Model Y, or you can see it right out here, it's not that big of a vehicle. And Lars just said at the Tesla Model S event that they have actually gotten a rating of 165 watt-hours per mile. So that makes it the most efficient electric vehicle on the planet, even by quite a margin. Even Lucid Air's very, very sophisticated electric vehicle is 21% less efficient than this vehicle. So they have built the most efficient electric vehicle that cost $20,000 to build. The legacy automakers, they can't even sell you an electric vehicle for $50,000 and earn money on it. And Tesla has an autonomous vehicle that's going to shoot off the production line every 10 seconds. It costs less. Ford loses about $40,000 every time they sell an electric vehicle. So this is really, to me, what sets this apart from everybody else, because Waymo have been here for a long time, but their rides are actually more expensive in the US than if you take an Uber or a Lyft. So they have not made Robotaxi the cheaper option, but the more luxurious option. You have your own cabin, it's a luxury experience. You have no cab driver and so on. But Tesla, according to ARK Invest research, they think this is the first time in 100 years that cost per mile per personally owned vehicle is going to drop. We saw a drop when we went from horses and carriages to an automobile in 1934, but because we put more technology and the cars get more and more expensive, the cost per mile has basically stayed flat, up and down of course, but basically stayed around that 70 cents per mile. And Tesla is aiming for 20 cents per mile, and ARK Invest thinks that 25 cents per mile is a good ballpark. And when we just know how efficient the vehicle is now, we have actually been able to calculate what it costs to drive a mile. And the Cybercab will only cost like 2.6 cents per mile to drive. So they still have quite a room to get to 25 cents per mile with everything else that is involved in operating a robotaxi fleet, of course. But it's very affordable, and probably for the first time in history, or the last 100 years, we are going to see a drop in ownership of a car. And that really opens this up to a whole new market, because there are so many people that can't afford to own their own vehicle, but if they just can have transport as a service, they can order in whenever they need it. I think that's going to change the market very much, because I think there are many people in the big city that don't want to have a car. They have to park somewhere. I know in my city, it cost me over $100 just to park if I wanted a parking spot next to the work I used to have in there. So this is very expensive to own a car, but if we can get it down here, and this vehicle can drive everywhere. So if they want to put this on the savannah in Africa, it can drive there. If you haven't seen the videos, there is people that have tried to make it go out on a field, and it does it. Drive on a dirt road, and they put the pin in the field, and they find a way to get into the field, and then it drives over to the pin, because it's looking for drivable space, where most others either have a digital map, or they are just looking for roads with the white lines. Tesla has basically learned to drive like a human does. So that leads us to that the product is the factory, as Elon so many times has said. The real product is the factory. And I think they are about to hit that place in history where that is coming true, that the factory is going to be something special, because we see all the time with Teslas, or definitely Elon Musk companies, that every time he sets a new goal, we all laugh and think that's insane. But every time he comes through and makes something that is absolutely mind-boggling. And I think XAI is probably one of the best newer examples, and I think this is some of the most mind-boggling things that have been done in technology in many, many years. When XAI, Elon Musk AI company, that he created like 3 years ago, they wanted to build this huge, colossal data center, and they wanted to make a 100,000 GPU coherent cluster. And coherent just means that every 100,000 GPUs work together as one brain. Everybody said this was impossible. Microsoft, Google, anybody, it was not possible. 30,000 units, that was the biggest you could make a coherent cluster. But not only did XAI build a 100,000 coherent cluster, so 3 times bigger than anybody thought was even possible, but they also built the damn thing 20 times faster than anybody knew how to. They actually write this on their website, they ask the normal guys that build these data centers, how fast can you build a 100,000 coherent cluster? They say the absolutely fastest we can do, if we prioritize you, is 2 years. So they said, okay, no thank you. We're going to take it in-house and try to figure out to do this ourselves. Okay, good luck. But then 4 months later, they have built a whole data center. And Jason Wang, the CEO of NVIDIA, was even out saying this is singular. He was the one delivering the chips. And it took 122 days for them to go through the whole project and have this up and running. And when they got all the chips and everything at the field or at the factory where they want to build it, it took them 19 days to install the whole thing and have it up and running. And this is not like a computer, you just sit and then plug it in and then everything's working. This is a very, very complicated thing. And Jason Hong said that this normally takes a year, and they did it in 19 days. And this is 2 years ago when they built the first colossal unit here. But they have done one, added 110,000 units in 92 days. And they have just added another 110,000 units in 64 days. And nobody have replicated the one that did 2 years ago. And they have cut the pace in half already. The pace of innovation here is just, for me, absolutely mind-blowing that they are able to do this. So this also shows to me that because whatever XAI learns, Tesla knows. Whatever Tesla learns, XAI knows, SpaceX knows. They're already working together. The Roadster is going to have SpaceX cold thrusters to shoot it off. Well, we don't know what it's going to do, but it's going to be crazy. They have been working together for many, many years. Even the first Model S that they built, the prototype, happened in the SpaceX factory because they didn't have room in their current factory. Because they were buying the T-Mobile factory or whatever it's called, GM and Toyota's factory in the Fremont factory. So they have been collaborating for a long time. So whatever they learn, now every company Elon Musk owns knows this. And if you were here just before, they were talking about the terafab, so I'm not going to go deep into this. Just what I wanted to mention here is, this is going to happen. People also laughed when Tesla said back in 2016 or something like that, that they want to build their own batteries because nobody was building batteries enough. They wanted to use more batteries than the whole world combined was actually building at that point in time for EV batteries. So people was thinking, are you crazy? Building more batteries than anybody else combined on the planet, that's what you want to do. Yes, thank you. And they partnered up with Panasonic and started building these batteries themselves. The whole industry, of course, gained momentum and come up with them. And now they also built their wholly own battery cell, the 4680 cell. That is actually now the cheapest battery that Tesla can buy right now, the cheapest battery cell. They can't get it any cheaper from any supplier at the moment. So they are really going full integrated on this one. And I think the terafab is the same story over again. Elon Musk has very big ambitions for the Cybercab, but also for the upcoming Optimus robot that they are working on right now. And they are all going to be using chips. And he has been asking the other chip manufacturing how many chips they can get, and he can't get enough. So now he's doing the same thing that he did with batteries. Can't get enough, I have to build them myself. The same thing with the lithium-ion refinery. They have also started to become the only lithium refinery in North America, or in Americas, I think. So Tesla finds the bottlenecks and then execute on it. So I really think they are partnering up with Samsung, where they're going to walk the production line at the Texas fab that Samsung has, but they're building AI-Fi chips for Tesla. And Elon Musk is going to walk that production line, and they're going to try to help Samsung to be more efficient and build a better production line. Because this is kind of, as I just shown you, this is kind of what Tesla is very, very good at, making production efficient. So they're going to try to help Samsung, and Samsung is going to teach Tesla and SpaceX how to produce chips. So I think it's a done deal. I don't think it's like if this is going to happen. It's just a question of when it's going to happen. Also because we know that SpaceX is going public, going IPO, and has just announced that they're going to sell the shares, 555 million shares for $135. So it's going to be that historic moment, the biggest IPO in history, $1.7 trillion or something like that, crazy big, and get $75 billion when they raise this. So they're going to use that to build this terafab. So I think they have the cash and they have the experience of producing stuff, and they have both Samsung and Intel to help them do all this thing. So that, of course, all of this leads us to the next product they are working on as we speak, the Optimus robot. It's probably going to be one of the most important products in Tesla's history. And I personally think they haven't shown us much in the last half year or so, because they want to hold the cars pretty close to the chest right now, because every time they show stuff off, everybody else copy it. So now we don't have much to go on. We have these two pictures. That is the only one that has surfaced. And I think that is the Gen 3 robot we are seeing there. Basically just look like Elon Musk in a suit. So it's going to be very human-like. And there's going to be a speak afterwards here about my life with a robot. There's going to be a robot on stage, so stay for that. And she's going to talk about how it is when you're not building the robot completely as the human form factor, because she wanted to change the hand or something, but that was very complicated. They had to take the whole robot back because they wanted a new hand on the robot. But Tesla, and that's why Tesla is trying to make one that is as humanly possible and get it right the first time, because then they can actually start shipping these out. To begin with, they're going to work in their factories, of course. But when they start shipping them out, they can always just make an over-the-air update, and then it can do it, because they learn from humans. So it doesn't need to know what a glass is. It just needs to see videos of me picking up a glass, and then it can know how to do that, because it has the same autonomy as I do. So I think that's the very most important thing about this robot, and why they are taking their time. And maybe someone say they are a little bit behind, and they are on some specs, of course. But this is actually the production line at the Fremont factory they are building. And this is their pilot production line, and they are aiming for 1 million robots to be produced here on their pilot production line. If you look at other competitors in this field, they are all aiming for like 10,000 units, and that's like figure. They aim for 10,000 units in 2028, I think it is. Someone like Unitree, the little robots that's going to be on stage afterwards, they are the biggest providers of humanoid robots. I believe they sold 5,000 last year or something like that. They're aiming for 75,000 in 2030. Their pilot line is 1 million. This is like, again, Elon thinking a bit too big. If they fall short and only make half, I think that's pretty good. Because they're also building this, thanks to Joe Tagmeyer for making all the amazing drone photos. But this is their dedicated humanoid robot factory that they are building as we speak. It already went vertical, putting in pillars and everything. And if Tesla's history is anything to go by, this is going to be up pretty fast. Everybody laughed when Elon said that in 1 year we're going to have a factory in China and it's going to be coming cars off the production line. And there was journalists that said, there's nothing here, there's a flag with some digging going on. 1 year later, less than 1 year later, I think 10 months later, the first car came off the production line. Again, something that has never been done before. But Tesla has learned how to build factories. And the most crazy thing is, they have learned how to build a 100% automated factory. That is their Cybercab production line they're testing out right now. So when we put all of this together for the Tesla Optimus robot, because they have basically everything they need to be the leader when this actually scales up. Because it's like with the robotaxis we're seeing right now. I don't know if you've seen, but Tesla had just applied for approval to launch 5,000 robotaxis in Nevada, only in that state, only in the first 12 months when they get the approval. But Tesla is getting really close on launching these unsupervised robotaxis. I just saw it yesterday, that they are planning on doing this. So that is one state, in the first year, 5,000 units. That's 2,000 units more than Waymo have after 7 years of operation. So I think we're going to see this scale that matters. We're going to see the same thing happen here with the robot. Many would say that Tesla is probably a little bit behind because they don't sell a robot to you and I. But they are making everything ready for it. And they have the most important thing, which I think is the brain. Because just like the smartphone, it didn't come out in 2025 or 2004 or 2005. It came out in 2007 because that was when the hardware and the software was ready to build this kind of machine that we now take for granted today. And I think the same thing is true why we're seeing such an explosion in humanoid robots is because all the missing parts when it comes to software, the humanoid robot, is the AI part. We need something. We can't program a robot to walk around in here and take the dishes, and it's too complicated. It has to learn like we do. We need AI to be able to have a truly humanoid robot. And we have seen that Tesla has been able to put their full self-driving software straight into the brain of Optimus, because what that system has done is just AI vision. It has learned to navigate roads, but it has learned to navigate our world through watching videos. And the Optimus human robot can do the same thing. Now it just have a different form factor. It has to learn how that works. But they can use simulation with the Tesla One that knows so much, and they have very powerful simulations at Tesla, but they also have their own robots that they are testing in their factory right now. And the more robots they put into their factory, the more learning and data they get from these robots back to their huge data centers they are building faster than anybody else. And then the flywheel just continues. Then they make an over-the-air update, and suddenly the robots can do 1,000 new things. And this flywheel will only accelerate the more robots they put into their factories. Then they, of course, have the chips that we just had talked about. They have designed their own chips for many years, but now they're also going to be producing the chips in the future. They have the production experience we have just talked about. They have the energy solution as well. And I'm not just talking about the 4680 cell, that's just a part of it. They also produce solar cells. They also have a charging network, the biggest around the world actually for electric vehicles. They also have megapacks, and they have software to control all of this. So when I say energy solution, they have everything when it comes to this part of controlling a big fleet of humanoid robots. They also have the real world data for 9 million cars on the road. They're collecting data, teaching the car to be better and better at navigating the real world, and they're going to get the same thing from the humanoid robots they're going to implement in their own factories. And then they have these huge data centers that they can build more and bigger and faster than anybody else, except SpaceX and xAI, that is now one company, and now probably just waiting on when SpaceX and Tesla is merging into another company. And when that happens, very shortly here at the end, what's beyond that? Because what comes next? We already know a little bit about this because Tesla has already talked about it, and SpaceX as well. And it just becomes more and more crazy. But like I've just shown you, Tesla happens to execute very well on these kind of things. It may be late, and it probably will be late, but it will probably eventually do it, because as we have seen, the experience through the last 14 years, I believe, has led them to where they are now, and they are in such a good position to execute from here on out on all these levers that I just showed you with the robot. But they also, the biggest, SpaceX now, they have the colossal AI computers now. They have rendered one out to Anthropic, one of the biggest AI companies in the world. They're going to earn, if they continue to work together, about $15 billion a year. Google has just, I don't know if you've seen this, also a few days ago, Google has just signed a deal with them to pay them almost $1 billion a month. They can both cancel it by December this year, but if they don't do that, it's a contract to 2029. So that is another over $33 billion just renting out this compute that they can build in 19 days. This is an insane flying wheel we are talking about. But one of the things that is also a big discussion is these data centers, they're using so much resources and energy here on Earth. So that's why they want to put them up in space. But actually, if you do the math on this, it actually makes a lot of sense. Because I talked to one of these AI systems and said, how much does it cost to run these data centers? Because Tesla want to build, or Elon Musk want to build this colossal 2, up to 1 million coherent GPU clusters. What would that cost to run in a year? And that's like, if I remember correctly, it was like $340 million just in electricity. And they want to build much bigger than this. So if you have one thing that is like, StarCloud is another company that's starting to work with SpaceX. They want to build something that is twice as big as that out in space. So we are getting close to like $1 billion just to keep these data centers running here on Earth. And that is without talking about where to put them and buy land for it and cooling and water and all that stuff. It's just the electricity. If they want to build as big as all these AI companies want to do, we're talking about $1 billion a year in just electricity. And SpaceX is working on this Starship rocket that we're going to have a contract with NASA to build moon bases and all that good stuff. But they are working on getting the launch cost down to They also talked about this in an event today, I believe. But down to like $2 to $10 million a launch. And they can launch 100 tons to orbit. So someone like StarCloud that want to build a 5 gigawatt complex data center in space, they probably need like 25 or 30 launches to do that. And if it only costs like $10 million, they're gonna pay itself off within months of operating a comparable data center on Earth. So it makes a lot of sense. And that's why everybody, NVIDIA, TSMC, or whatever they call AMD, they're all working on how to make their GPUs work in space. So is SpaceX, and they're all working on this terafab to make these chips to go to space. And that's really going to accelerate everything. And SpaceX also have Starlink around the world, but with over 10 million customers. But they're going to expand that to the moon. So we're going to have gigabit internet connection on the moon whenever that happens. Right, it's just so far out and so crazy, but we're seeing they already have this shit up and running in space, and they're just going to launch more. And Tesla want to build not just the moon base together with NASA, they want to build factories on the moon and have these rail guns shooting these AI satellites into space and really start harnessing the energy of the sun. Yeah, that's the future. So that's the crazy part. But Søren Basher, a known guy in the Tesla community, and an analyst and a fund manager, he also said, well, SpaceX and Tesla, if they don't collide, but just collaborate, they have so much of this technology together that we're talking about when we're looking into the future. So SpaceX AI, as they call it now, and Tesla together could provide energy, internet, transportation, AI, robotics, security, and even future space-based computing. So he's saying, think Starlink, Megapax, robotaxis, Optimus, Croc, Starshield, which they are building for the United government right now, different from Starlink, and then orbital data centers. And then he's not even mentioning the solar panels that they are building right now, the power walls and their virtual power plants and the software and all this great stuff they all have together. So the big idea is that Tesla, SpaceX may not just build products, they may build the operating system of the future because they simply have all the components to make this happen. And that leads me to my end slide and to my conclusion of what is the most important product Tesla is ever going to create. I think it is the factories, because that is the one they're going to build Optimus robot. But the crazy thing is, right now, they have a production line that is 100% automated, building the most complex large manufacturing consumer product the world has ever had. There are thousands in the graveyard of automotive companies that try to do what Tesla did, make a new company, make a new car company. But because it is so difficult with the complex supply chain and everything, nobody have done it in like 70 years before Tesla came along. And now they have made that complex product, the most complex supply chain we probably have in the world. They have automated that. So in my view, when you can build a factory in less than a year that is 100% automated, I don't know what they're going to build next, but whatever the world's probably need, if that is energy infrastructure or space habitats or whatever it might be, I think Tesla will be able to merge into other markets that they haven't been in before because of their manufacturing that Elon talked about back in 2020. They're going to be head and shoulders above everybody in manufacturing. Toyota is copying them now with their big castings and structural battery pack. They ripped apart the Model Y and called it a work of art. But they have already moved the goalpost. Toyota is coming out probably in 28 with their next generation EV platform that has copied Tesla's Model Y. And then they have made some iteration and tried to improve on it. But they're copying Tesla's production method from 2022. They're coming in 2028. And right now, Tesla has made something that is 100% automated. I think this is so mind-blowing what they have done. And I think they can build these factories and build basically whatever they want to. Because they also have the insanely powerful AI tools to help them build new products, make simulations, and figure out how to make whatever it might be, the next heat pump, the HVAC system for our houses, or whatever it might be. So I think Tesla will merge together with SpaceX, and they're going to merge into a lot more different companies. Because Søren Basher didn't even mention like mining the solar system. Elon has a boring company. They don't even have to dig a hole anymore. They have the Provoc robot that can just put on a slide, and then it just starts digging. And they have made now continuous digging, so it's digging and building the inside at the same time with no humans in the tunnels. This is going to be a wild future, and why I think that Tesla is the one that's going to, is best positioned to bring us that future of amazing abundance that they are trying to get us to. And I hope they get there, and I hope this is a positive take on all of this, because it can also go in many other directions, of course. But I hope this will be true, and I think this is just the beginning of what Tesla, the company, actually is. So that's all for me. Thank you so much for your time in here today, and enjoy the rest of your time here. Thank you.